Aram, in the near future, in a few days, I think we were expecting, and we are still expecting, the meeting that was announced by the State Department and actually by the Secretary of State, where she would meet with the representatives from the Armenian American community. We had already talked about that. We had already raised our issues about that meeting, about the nature of that meeting, and about the nature of the organizations that were invited. Now, today, the Armenian Weekly had published an article, an editorial regarding this meeting. Aram, is there anything going wrong?
Yeah, I think there certainly is, Manoug. The way this meeting is currently configured doesn't serve Secretary Clinton's interests in hearing an honest appraisal from the Armenian American community. It certainly doesn't serve the Armenian American community's interest in being able to sincerely and authentically pass along our concerns to the leaders of U.S. diplomacy here in Washington. The invitation list was both very narrow in terms of who was included and also who was excluded, and also extremely biased in the direction of the protocols. It's obviously a policy that the administration has been pushing very aggressively, and the State Department has been implementing on behalf of the White House. So the list was very narrow. It didn't serve the Secretary. It didn't serve our community. And we have sought, since those invitations were extended, Manoug, to broaden that list, to be more inclusive, and just as importantly, more representative. So I would say this, Manoug. Those of us that were invited, and the ANC was invited to this meeting, bear an extremely special burden, which is to make sure that the group that does eventually meet with the Secretary is representative and is broad-based. We've done that. We have, to the point of saying that we could not participate if that kind of equity is not demonstrated. You know, we've gone that far. We've said that we're willing to not even attend a meeting if we feel that it's being put together in a way that's unfair to our community. The other groups have not done that, unfortunately, and I think that the Assembly and the other groups that have been invited have fallen far short of the expectation that our community has of them, to not simply say, we got into the meeting, that's enough for us. No, the question is not, is it good for them? The question is it good for the community? And I think their silence speaks volumes. I think that our advocacy speaks actually very highly of our entire community's interest in seeing a representative meeting.
Actually, that silence is kind of suspicious, but my next question would be then, what's next? What is being done towards, or regarding this matter? What is being done to correct the situation? Unfortunately, the other organizations, as we just said, are keeping silent, and that silence is suspicious. Anyways, I think there is a high load on the ANC. So what's next?
Well, I think it's a sad testament to the situation that it's even worse than silence. We've seen active efforts to block extremely legitimate organizations from participation in this meeting. I'll give a few examples. The Armenian Relief Society is our nation's largest Armenian women's organization. It's for 100 years now has been serving our community. It's part of the fabric of the Armenian nation, and yet there have been very pointed efforts to exclude them because apparently their participation would represent some kind of risk or affront to another organization, which is ridiculous. We've seen the diocese invited, and of course the Armenian diocese is a treasured part of the Armenian world and our community, and that's good. But why would the prelacy, churches supported by hundreds of thousands of Armenians, why would they be excluded? Why would we include our Armenian apostolic brothers, but not our Armenian evangelical or Catholic brothers? On what possible grounds could any Armenian organization advocate against the inclusion of Armenian Catholics and Armenian Protestants? These are simply ridiculous positions being taken by these other organizations, and really represent the worst traditions of community unity and community solidarity. We do not build ourselves up by ripping others down. We do not make ourselves more important by excluding others from the community discourse. No. In fact, we strengthen each other when we stand together. The Hominid men have a saying, raise yourself, and elevate others with you. That's the guiding message that should serve as our inspiration here. Not, let's get what's good for us and forget everyone else. Let's not build ourselves up and think that we're more important because we're ripping other people down. The Armenian Prelacy, the Armenian Catholics and Protestants, the Armenian Relief Society, and many of the other organizations that we have advocated for have an extremely legitimate place in this meeting because they represent the diverse and rich fabric of our community. To exclude some of these because they support one position or the other is short-sighted and very destructive.
Okay, let's face it and be frank. We were not and we are not expecting that all issues and all matters would be resolved through this single meeting. It is not going to be the last meeting. But anyways, the way it is being held or the way it is being treated, exactly as you said, is at least it's unfair. It's not fair. So now, what is the ANC planning to do to signal that the outcomes of this meeting of this meeting wouldn't be authentic, at least?
We have sat down repeatedly. We have held dozens of calls, have exchanged dozens of email messages with all of our community partners to explain that our community is best served when we're accurately represented, that the State Department, in fact, is best served when they hear a true reflection of our community's views. Unfortunately, our appeals have not been met with much good faith. I think that the groups that are in feel as though they have their place and, let everyone else worry about themselves. That's not our view at all. We have an obligation to each other and to our broader community to be fair, to rise above petty differences and petty prejudices, and to recognize that when we meet with the principles of the principal figures deciding U.S. foreign policy, we have an obligation to ourselves and to them to be fair and to be open and to be honest and inclusive, and not really sink down to this really very juvenile level that we've seen on behalf of some of the Armenian organizations. It's clear, I mean, that the State Department has an interest in supporting those elements of the community that cheerlead on the protocols. That's their interest in this scenario, it would seem, based on the biased nature of the invitations. As a community, we should see that, rise above it, but instead we've seen some of these organizations take the bait and act disrespectfully toward the rest of the community.
Sadly, I was saying, Aram, and unfortunately we are now seeing some infantile behavior from some of our organizations. But that's normal too, and let's together hope for the better. Let's together hope for some change. Anyways, Aram, thank you very much. I hope we'll speak soon again, and we'll have some better news to share with our audience, with our viewers. Thank you very much, and please say hi to everyone in Washington, D.C. For now, thanks and bye-bye.